Welcome everybody to today's webinar. We're super excited to get going here. We're going to be talking about pipeline management and forecasting, how end of month sales strategies are costing you millions and how you can overcome it. We've got some really great tips that we are going to dive into today. But before I do that, I want to make sure you're familiar with the webinar platform, and I do answer just a couple housekeeping items. So if you can, I want you to put your name and where you're from right in that Q&A or in that chat console there, just so we can make sure that we do want to answer questions. We probably will leave most of those till the end, but we do want this to be interactive and answer some of your questions. So feel free to grab that Q&A or that chat. There it is right there. Yes. Oh, yeah. How do I get that up? Perfect. Yeah. Dennis, Wendy, Janet, Mike. Oh, Mike coming from Round Rock, Texas. I like it. Yeah, perfect. Peter, Sabine, Carl, Don. Don is a regular here. Don, thanks for joining. Perfect, you guys. So feel free to use that. We would like this to be interactive. Do know that this deck will be available in on-demand format after the webinar. Christina, Sean, Mike, thanks everybody for joining. All right, this is awesome, you guys. What do we got? About 400 people. This is great. Oh, Christiane coming from Deutschland. Awesome. Okay. I'm probably spending too long on this. So let's get into it. I'm Gabe Larson. I'm the Vice President of Growth at InsideSales.com. InsideSales.com, we help companies, we help sales teams build more pipeline and close more deals using artificial intelligence. So that's a little bit about me, but I do want Dan Hopkins, VP of Innovation over at Aptus. Dan, thanks so much for joining. Can you take just a minute and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about Aptus.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gabe. Thanks for having me too as well. So my name is Dan Hopkins, the VP of Innovation. And my job at Aptus is to ensure that Aptus remains the market leader by embracing some of the emerging technologies that extends our core mission, which is providing quote-to-cash applications within a term called the middle office. So I'm predominantly looking at ways to leverage and extend our applications using artificial intelligence, blockchain, and some augmented reality technology. So thanks again for having me. I'm looking forward to being able to present today.
Yeah, Aptus, you guys, it's such a great company. We consider it in some ways just a sister company in that it's so synergistic, and you'll see some of that as we talk about the InsideSales.com kind of mantra, and then Dan will dive into some of his pieces. So I'm going to start out first, and I want to see if I can set the stage on this concept of pipeline management. I'm going to dive into the why, what, and how, a little bit on this why, and this research that we've done recently, and I think that'll set up both Dan and I to talk about how people are solving challenges around pipeline management and forecasting every day. So first and foremost, let's get into the why. And I don't know if you've seen this in your own business. We unfortunately see it at InsideSales.com. It's that hockey stick effect, right? January comes around, you got a quarter, nothing's closing. February starts to speed up just a little bit. And then March, March 28th, 29th, 30th, things really start to pick up pace. Now, this is kind of that standard effect that we see within sales. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to take a step back and figure out why we see that in business and what is it doing to your bottom line. Now, these are my children. These are, I call my three monsters, my boys here, Noah, Crew, and Jude. This is a picture we took in Hawaii. What you're not seeing in this picture is that right after we took it, the one in the middle knocked the glasses off the one on the right, and then he then blamed the guy on, with the red glasses there on the far right. And it got into this blame game. And by the time I didn't even know whose problem it was. And truthfully, we see that in sales. When it comes to what happens at the end of the quarter or the end of the month, you typically have three guilty parties: sales rep, customer, and leader. And is it really is it everybody's fault as to what happens? Is it one person's fault? I think you could probably argue it. Sometimes sales leaders say, hey, do whatever it takes to win the deal. And then the sales rep says, look, I'll do whatever I can to get you the best price. And then ultimately the customer says, I'm going to wait till the very last moment so that I can get kind of the very best price for your quarter end or your year end or your month end. And you've got this cyclical cycle that, we all know about, but I don't know if we really know much about what it's doing to our business. And so we took a step back and wanted to study the hockey effect in sales. So we actually looked at 10 million sales opportunities. And I wanted to just take a pause there because this wasn't a pulse survey. This wasn't something where we just asked a bunch of sales leaders, how do you feel at the end of the quarter? Is it good? No, we actually went in and looked at hundreds of companies. We got a big data set. We looked at 10 million sales opportunities. That's 10 with a M on it, million. To study the patterns and behaviors of what's really happening at the end of the month and quarter. And this is basically the results. And just so you know, these were fairly larger companies, not a ton of smaller. They were a little larger in their organization. I can answer questions about that if you'd like. So this is I looked at all 10 million of those sales opportunities and I charted it by won and lost. This is what it looked like throughout the month. And you can see pretty consistent. People win and they lose, depending on the day of the month, it's fairly equal throughout it. Now, if you notice, though, there's one thing that's missing, and that is that last day of the month or quarter. Now, look at this. Look at what happens there. It's just, some of us know that, right? If I went to a sales leader and said, look, on the last day of the month, quarter, on average, you close 3 times more than you do any other day of the month. I think most leaders would probably say, okay, that's potentially true. That potentially makes sense. What a lot of people don't realize is on that last day of the month, they actually lose 11 times the number of deals than they do on average through the month. So you see this crazy effect at the end of the quarter or end of the month. So much so that I just took a step back and said, look at this, you guys. Look at that difference. It's a crazy difference in the numbers. Now, as you double click on that, there's a couple interesting things that go into it. This is the deal size of those 10 million sales opportunities charted by day. And you can see at the beginning of the month, it slowly dips down. Now, interestingly, there is kind of a high point as you get closer to the end of that quarter where your deal sizes are going to be maximized. Interestingly, look at that. You get the lowest over here. But as you approach that end of the quarter, that second to last day to the last day, your deal sizes drop 35%. That's incredible drop in deal sizes. In addition to that, and we kind of showed this is your win rate. The day before your last versus your last day of the month, your ability to win deals drops 50%. It's just the nature of the business. Now, some of you are probably saying, Gabe, don't people clean out their pipeline a little bit at the end of the month? Maybe that's why people are losing so many deals. Yes, that's true, guys, but it's not 11 times the average. It's just not. We're forcing a lot of stuff that we probably shouldn't. We're discounting, and I'm going to say, I get it. We've got to do it in certain cases, but there is some unhealthy pushing going on, and we probably need to be aware of that. Now, last but not least, I just thought this was interesting. If you look at weekday versus weekends and you think about the last days of the month, if you're closing on a weekday, you have a way better chance of maximizing your deal size. If you close deals on the weekend, you get pizza, we're closing the quarter, let's bring everybody in and hold them. Deal sizes drop by 82% when we're trying to close Sunday or Saturday nights versus when we're closing sometimes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Interesting data. Is that not interesting? I thought that was pretty fascinating, you guys. Some interesting patterns. We all do it. We all know what's going on, but what kind of damage is it causing? And some of it is going to be, you can't get away from it. But know that on average, of the hundreds of companies we studied, if they would have managed the last days of the month or quarter, and not seen that deal size drop, kept the average, not seen their win rate just go cut in half. If they would have been able to manage and stick to the average, they would have been able to increase revenue by 27%, just by managing that really stressful time better. Now, some of you might be scratching your head. It's a little different, but there is, again, going to be a give and take here. Some deals you have to unnaturally push. Some deals we might need to be a little bit smarter about. That's what we wanted to talk about today. I get it. Sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you don't. How can you start thinking about being a little bit more strategic about managing your opportunities and your forecasts? And I want to take you through 2 or 3 points here. I say 2 or 3, but you know I always mean 4 or 5. And then I'm going to hand it over to Dan because they add such a powerful additional point. So let me take you through a couple of what I feel like are best practices in order to manage your pipeline a little bit better. Number 1 is this concept of sweet spots. You probably haven't done this. It is a really interesting exercise. This actually looks at when do you most optimally close deals. And what you're seeing on top here is by deal size. And as we looked at the data set, the 10 million sales opportunities, large deals closed better towards that end of the month when we look at quarters. Interestingly, smaller deal sizes, they had kind of a more of an optimal close time at the beginning of the month, those transactional deals. So the transactional was more at the beginning. Mid-sized deals were kind of right in that middle, and then those big enterprise deals closed best kind of that last week if you wanted to maximize your deal size. So the question is there a way you can start thinking about that concept and then saying, guys, how can we change behavior to align a little bit around that? And this is where I would say point 2 jumps in. Hit your reps where it hurts them the most. That actually sounds a little bit negative, and I don't mean it to be negative, but I think there's some behavior change that you might want to consider. A lot of people, when it comes to sales compensation, focus on revenue, just how much money in. Some companies are thinking about margin, the amount by which revenue from sales exceeds costs in a business. So you got a couple different options when it comes to compensation. And I think some companies are doing a lot of good on playing compensation around margin rather than just around revenue. So if I sold a $1,000 item, I get commission of 5%. That's a payment of $500. In the margin compensation plan, if I sell something at $1,000, the cost to me was $500. Commission is 10%. Therefore, I get, a $50 payout on that. It's looking at compensation different just so you make sure that you don't discount and solve that 35% discount problem that happens on average that last bit of the month. So you might want to think about some compensation changes if this is a big problem in your organization. The second thing is just thinking about spiffing. And this works better in the transactional side of the house. This is an actual spiff that we ran around our sweet spot. So we found that typically we close our mid-market better at the beginning, kind of that middle of the month. So we just said, hey, we'll get you an extra spiff on top of the deal if you can get your deals closed in that time when we know we make the most money. And we started to artificially change behavior so that we could get people to move around that idea of focusing on the optimal time of the month. So those would be a couple of ideas. Sean, I do think you are right there. And I've got a couple of people. Sean, Gus, correction, 5% of 1,000 is not 500. Look, let's get back there because I got to thank you, Sean, Gus. That was not supposed to be that. That is correct, Gus. We changed that and make it 500 there. So the concept, though, hopefully, Gus, you got there because I think that is the idea. Thinking about margin and compensation or thinking about changing behavior when it comes to compensation details. The other thing we found really effective, thanks, Gus. I appreciate your patience, guys. It's hard sometimes to do these slides. So the next thing is focusing on customer timelines, not yours. So A lot of times when it comes to selling, it is just an art. It's just, hey, we shoot from the hip and we kind of wing it. We've had a lot of success with mutual success plans where we actually take a step back and say, how can we align both of us, the customer and the sales rep, on a mutual success plan that we work towards in order to achieve our goals. Now, as a side, we do try to align some of those pieces when we have our sweet spots, like let's get signature around, the 27th of the month rather than the 28th, 29th, or 30th, 31st. But coming up with a mutual success plan, and if you're interested, I'd be happy to share. We're actually building a template. This has been requested enough. Just some of the templates we use internally around a mutual success plan. Great tool. It aligns it so that there's conscious selling rather than just, oh no, I got to that end of quarter. Now I got to push. No, let's have a plan and let's work towards it. Next thing is trying to move a little bit away from CRM. One of the big pushes that we hear from our audiences is that CRM does not work very well when it comes to forecasting. A lot of that is because the snapshot capability. It doesn't allow you to snapshot things as much, so you lose information as you try to get real-time trend analysis, etc. When it comes to CRM, I loved this idea here. It basically says a CRM it allows you to do almost everything. You've got Swiss Army knife, right? You can manage leads and manage forecasts and manage opportunities and do finance and do marketing and do campaigns. And it's kind of a one shot. It just allows you to do a ton of stuff, but it only goes a foot deep. We've got tool sets, and we actually went deep into this at InsideSales.com. That's really a tool set designed specifically with your CRM to dive in and get better at forecasting so that we could see if we could help our customers move from what typical rates of forecasting accuracy is, which is about 50%, more into that 80%. And I wanted to see if I could demonstrate that to you here just in a very tactical manner. So this is our forecasting platform that hooks into CRM, and it helps organizations get a clearer picture into what is likely to close versus what's not likely to close using some artificial intelligence. So if I'm a sales manager, I come into my dashboard here, right in CRM, and I see that I got 37 deals in commit. So I want to click into that. And I see that Danielle, she's got 6 of those deals at 126,000. It looks like she's just added one called Dedicated SH. But look, the system here is actually saying it's not very likely to close. What that means is the system has scanned the deal. It said, look, it's pushed a couple times. It doesn't have the right decision makers. It hasn't had activity on the deal for a couple days. It has these attributes that we know are not very likely to close. It probably shouldn't be in commit. So you talk to Danielle and you're able to move that from commit into best case, thus driving that accuracy of forecast using some intelligence rather than just, kind of a shot in the arm there. So that's the concept of using a system to dive deeper into forecasting. Now, last but not least, and I know Dan's probably looking at me, I always say I'm just going to go 15 minutes, Dan, but I never am very good at time, but I'll finish up here because I want you to get Dan's piece here as well. But because I like a concept of maniacal focus on weekly forecasting. And what do I mean by that? You can't show up at the end of the quarter and be blindsided. And so what I've done with different organizations is let's put something together. Let's get a strategy or structure in play that allows us to see our roll-up strategy on forecasting. And this is not crazy detail. The idea is simply, look, on Thursday, we're going to have our sales reps submit their forecasts. And again, an InsideSales.com forecasting tool or a CRM tool set. The managers then review that and apply judgment on top of that. In addition to that, it rolls up then Friday morning. The VPs take it, they revise it and apply their own judgment. And then the CEO, the executive team, does it every Friday afternoon for the company forecast. You need some sort of maniacal structure. And again, if you run this transactional deals, it's going to be about how do we close. If you're enterprise deals, it's going to be focusing on milestones. How are we moving deals forward? But without some sort of structure, you're just going to be lost when it comes to pipeline management and forecasting. Now, the structure is important. You may want to look at a technology, whether it's in your CRM or a tool set like Inside Sales. You want to be able to sit down and say, okay, I'm a manager. It looks like my team says I'm going to close about 790,000. The AI system is predicting 675. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll up and adjust my forecast just a little bit so that I don't look like an idiot to my management team and miss what I recommend closing. So the strategy, the structure, and the technology are often important to manage that Friday forecast call that I know we all dread. So there you go, guys. Those are a couple pieces to solve that end of quarter crisis. I think it's interesting. I want to show you to see if you can get that research. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it because you need to see how it looks in your own organization. So remember, sweet spots. Number 2, maybe play with compensation. I love number 3, that mutual success plan. After that is maybe not CRM. Maybe you need to get a different tool set. That 5th point, maniacal focus on weekly forecasting. And then last but not least, I want to hand it over to Dan because this idea of being able to support this process using artificial intelligence to accelerate the CPQ part of it becomes kind of that cherry on top. So Dan, I know I went a little long, but I want to toss it over to you. Let's dive into that CPQ part and see how that can augment.
Gabe, thanks a lot. I really appreciate great content there. And thanks again for having me on this call. So I wanted to talk to you too, specifically that last point, which is really extending and accelerating those forecasting applications, ensuring that what's in that forecast is accurate, that it is easy to compose that quote that consists of that forecast, so that there's not constant revisions, and that you have a surety that what is in that particular offering that's making up that forecast or the aggregate forecast and pipeline is in fact accurate, and that's something that you can count on. And specifically today, I want to talk about how AI in general can extend those applications and work with inside sales to provide some pretty amazing insights to get you elevated to that next level. So the first thing that I want to just share with you is the Aptus application footprint, and just quickly walk through a couple slides so that you know what we exactly do. We essentially handle the processes between a buyer's intent to purchase goods all the way down to the recognition of revenue. So that quotation process and even contracting to a certain degree are all the things that you're offering within each quarter that's rolling up into your pipeline forecast. So how do you remove the friction in configuring your solution set, either products or services? How do you ensure the accuracy of the price, the approval rules, the workflows that are necessary to get that done? And how do you get that deal done in time in order to meet those pipeline commits and forecasting that you have, right? Especially if you're in contract negotiations and you're trying to understand the cycle time to get that particular deal done at the end of the quarter. All of these things really work together. So we have a number of process-based applications that facilitate that overall workflow. On top of that, we've got some behavioral apps as well, things like incentive compensation, most succinctly as it relates to sales folks and forecasting, to really get downstream visibility into what your compensation for each deal is. And then finally, we have a set of AI tools that in conjunction with inside sales really creates a powerful selling experience and really transforms the way that sellers go to market and push the needle within the organization. So quickly, we support a number of different verticals, number of different industries. Major companies use us for CPQ and CLM, industry leader across that field. But as I mentioned, this conversation is a little bit more focused on AI and our AI technologies and how that enables sales acceleration. So we have a microservice platform architecture, multi-tenant, depending on what cloud environments you prefer. And that's Salesforce, Azure, and IBM Cloud at the moment. On top of that, and this is kind of the secret sauce for driving our AI, because really the secret of AI is the data model, is that we have that unified single database that we can provide insights across that quote-to-cash landscape. So all of your quoting data, what was tendered, what was offered, what prices changed, what discounts, what was accepted, what was cross-sold, All of that information in that CPQ process, we maintain and track those insights and variables through that really provides a lot of insight. Now, when you put that in with contracts and what was changed in the contract and what was risky and what was litigated, you're starting to get the idea that there's a tremendous amount of insights and a broader picture that we can glean from that single data model. That data model supports not only our quote-to-cash applications, but an artificial intelligence stack on top of that. Now, how do we think about AI? Well, we think about it really in three ways. For our users, we want to help them assist, augment, and automate particular sales processes. So the first one is just removing the friction that normally would exist into a task. So you can think of this as perhaps a conversational user experience, that instead of a sales user needing to log into an application, that with a conversational user experience, they can just say what they want to accomplish, and the system is smart enough to understand conversational intent and go out and choose that outcome. We also can augment a seller's experience by essentially using machine learning algorithms and those data models and companies like Inside Sales, the insights that they can provide to surface best practices and insights in the quotation process that ensures that that the things that wind up in the forecast are not only accurate, but are maximized to their fullest potential. And then finally, we help our customers to automate specific processes. So think about this as like contract renewals if certain conditionality is met. And this is the sort of hands off the wheel approach to the sales, automating the sales process. That materializes in 4 core technologies, and I'll show you a couple of these here today. So we have an intelligent virtual agent, which is that use case of being able to just talk to your software, which is that paradigm shift, right? Is that now your software understands you. You don't have to open up your browser, find a connection, an internet connection, and understand how to use the system to achieve your outcomes. You can speak intelligent to it just as if it was somebody that was working for you. And we'll see a part of that demo. By no means is that our only UI. We have a classic UI for CPQ, configuration, pricing, and quoting, and contracts, etc. But we wanted to kind of show some of the concepts and power here together in a pretty cutting edge UI. Of course, this is since I'm VP of Innovation, right? We have an intelligent discovery set of AI technologies, meaning any contracts that you have that are out there today, we can take a look at those contracts, extract that information automatically, and pull that directly into the system. So that now we're tracking all of your obligations, we're tracking all of your contractual terms, and we're gleaning insights. And that's feeding some of the machine learning algorithms from a quote-to-cash standpoint that, again, in conjunctions with your inside sales data, is creating a really powerful and rich selling experience that really starts to put best practices in place. Finally, we have our own set of machine learning algorithms. And for CPQ, for instance, those might be around cross-sell, upsell recommendations. So what have other companies have bought in this particular time of year for this particular industry, for this particular size of company, right? Multiple dimensions. What should we be pricing this product at? What products are likely to be sold? What are the highest propensity of our customers to look at what products they need to buy? Again, something that can be even further amplified by the insights that inside sales can provide. And then finally, we have computer vision AI technologies. So what I mean by that is, since we are the catalog of record for most companies, especially on the sales side, a user can take a picture of a particular item. It ties back to a company's product catalog, and that will match to that product so that they can replace that or service that, for instance. So before we go into that demo, I wanted to give you a quick snapshot. And these echo some of the items that Gabe said, that 27% new revenue opportunities. But we've seen an increase in the overall 25% of quote quality of just the things that are actually being needed and addressed and error-free from say a complex configuration. Those are now being improved so that it's almost reaching 100% in total. But we're getting moving that needle from 75 or 73% to 99% on that process. That net revenue opportunities we've already kind of touched upon, but we've also seen a 63% increase in pipeline offering predictability. So by making sure that you put those checks and balances on the quotation process, that you know that pipeline is not going to change, you have a surety of that number is that number, and then inside sales can come in and provide you the other factors of that deal of which you want to focus in on and see if that deal is realistic to be sold in that quarter or not. And then finally, the 83%, which is a tremendous number of sales efforts efficiency. And so this is just removing the friction on sellers to go to market, to offer their products to their customers, and being able to really remove the time necessary to configure price and offer a quotation. And so without further ado, I want to quickly give you a demo of sort of a lot of these concepts into one. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share my phone. So Gabe and I didn't plan this, but I too have my son here on my phone. We'll go ahead and open up our chat windows. And Aptus Artificial Intelligence, something collectively that we call Max, works across a number of different messaging channels. It works with Siri, Cortana, Alexa. It's really designed to be ubiquitous. So in this case, we'll go ahead and choose Skype. And so what I might want to do as a seller is I want to ask Max what my quota is. So let me go ahead and do that. What is my quota? And so this might be something like what my quota left. Max tells me now through this conversational user experience that I have $500,000 quota left to close. And so that's pretty cool, right? Because this is just me asking a question. I don't have to go in and click any buttons to get that information. I just naturally ask that question. It's like, what's my quota left? What's my attainment left? And Max will provide that information back directly to me. And so what's really cool about that, in addition to that, is that Max is offering to analyze a list of accounts and suggest an account that most likely will help me retire my quota for the year, and is asking me if I want to suggest that one for me. So this is white spacing of accounts, right? So a salesperson's normal job before they get a number that goes into pipeline forecasting is to figure out where to spend their time, energy, and effort. And what Max can do is, by analyzing a series of data points, can find the customers that have the highest propensity to buy and recommend that. So true white spacing of account opportunities. So let's go ahead and say yes. And what Max has now done is it's found a potential customer to sell to. And you can see that there are some trending purchase indicators from Aptus and likelihood to engage from inside sales. And those have fused together to surface those recommendations. And it's saying, do you want us to create an opportunity for that? As a salesperson, says, yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and leverage those machine learning algorithms for both companies to really find an offering to sell to so that I can go to club, right? But the first thing that we need to do is we need to go out and create an opportunity, in this case, Salesforce. But because I'm in a conversational UI, I don't really care about all the steps and processes and different applications that I need to go out just to generate a quote. The great thing here is that Aptus' AI and conversational technology orchestrates the applications and the processes needed to achieve a particular outcome. So while this is creation of an opportunity is purely a Salesforce type activity, Max is presenting that to us right here within Skype, which is pretty incredible. So let me go ahead and fill out the Salesforce related activities. So I'll put in 12/12/18 as my date. I can set the prospecting stage to say qualification. We can title this opportunity Max. And of course I can be speaking this or using Siri or Cortana, and we'll just say this is a Max created opportunity. And so this is really going to drive our future forecasting and information. And you can see that now what we've got is we have an opportunity created in Salesforce. This starts our CRM of record for this particular demonstration. And I can go and view that. But you'll see that that's happening all behind the scenes. Max is abstracting all of those processes and applications for me. I'm simply having a conversation, right? And what it's also doing is, besides viewing that in Salesforce, Max is also recommending best practices by exposing the inside sales plays and the recommendations and recommending that we contact this particular account. And it's prompting me as a sales user, would you like me to set up a follow-up call and update my playbook? Yes, I would. Max will then go out and look at my next available calendar spot, and it's 2 p.m. I can change that if I wanted to. but I'll go ahead and take that recommendation because I know that that's the first time that I'm free. Now it's created that calendar entry and a playbook entry for me, and now I'm ready to quote. So again, orchestrating across a number of different applications to achieve my quote, that's then going to generate the data that I need for forecasting. So I am ready to create a quote. Let's do it. I could, of course, come back and it manages the state of all of this, but we are going through this demo. And in this case, I could either choose from a product catalog or have Max suggest what products I should be selling to this customer based off of propensity to buy. So we have some insights here based off of past buying behavior, marketing data, similar accounts, and inside sales predictive cloud insights. I'd recommend that we sell a carbon 3D printer. So of course I could say no, but this goes back to that augmentation, right? Surfacing best practices and insights in this particular process. Should I add this to the quote? We can say yes. And we'll go ahead and take Max's recommendations on the total number. We've got our quote there with our price. Of course, we can view this in our CRM or Aptus. Max is also recommending a cross-sell product. And Max has optimized the price using machine learning. And if all that wasn't enough, me being a coin operated salesperson, using Aptus incentive compensation management tells me that, hey, if you add this, it's going to increase your commission from $12,000 to $14,300. That's good for me. I'll go ahead and say yes. My quote's done. Again, I can view that. But Max is also offering to send this off to my prospect. I'll take it up. I'll take Max up on that. It pulls the contact from Salesforce. Of course, I could choose to send it to somebody else if I wanted to. And now that is on its way, and I feel more comfortable about going to club. So if I switch quickly over to my mail, you'll see that there's my quotation that's generated. Of course, that can be a PDF, etc. But it really doesn't get easier than that, right? It doesn't feel like I did any work. It's as if I had my own assistant, and I just simply asked them to go through and generate a quote. And now I know that the quote that I've offered is not only accurate, but it's something that will likely not change and removes the friction for me in order to have a pristine pipeline that we can then do reporting off of.
I love it. I love it. Awesome, Dan. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to flash something here, guys, as we kind of wrap. Let me see if I can show this. If there are questions, feel free to throw them out now. Dan, thanks so much for joining. We do want you to, for those of you who would like to, take the next step on this. I'm going to put right now in the chat access to this research that you're seeing, this time-based closing strategies, what happens at the end of the month and quarter. What Dan showed today, that's just a small part of the Aptus platform. I'd recommend you go to aptus.com, check out more of the capabilities that Aptus can provide in partnership with inside sales, and I think you can definitely continue that journey. So, Dan, anything kind of in closing as we jump and maybe answer just a couple of questions here? Oh, yeah, got it. Fantastic. So everybody, if you do see that, you can see that research study right there. Do check that out. So guys, do connect with me and Dan. I'd love to continue the dialogue on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I'm always happy to discuss pipeline management best practices. So again, thank you so much for joining and have a fantastic day.